came to realise that we couldn't abdicate our authority and power and responsibility and give it to the big oil companies, which was really the previous situation. So we started to develop some expertise, to recruit some people, and perhaps the most important thing we did initially was to look at the developing situation in the rest of the world, and specifically on our own doorstep, well, almost, in the North Sea. One side of it Norway, one side of it Britain. Britain wasting their resource because the big companies were so powerful. Norway using it brilliantly so that they've now secured their future.
How did they, in a slightly bit more detail, between the comparison between the approach to Britain and the approach taken by Norway?
Well, I had a horribly crude word. I talked about state take. And that was to emphasise that I wanted a large lump of the profits for the inhabitants of the indigenous country, because the oil companies were accustomed to writing rules, and you can see it in the oil countries, oil supplying countries around the world, where the local people got almost nothing. And I wasn't having that. The Norwegians took various mechanisms of either participation, a state company to monitor the others, either a fixed charge on each unit of production, or taxation, or a basket of all of them. I didn't know enough to determine what way the state take should be determined, or whether it should be a mixture, but I knew that it had to be much bigger than was assumed when I came into office.
What impressed you about the Norwegian model?
Norway, not very different in size from us. Poor farmland. It's really not a country but a sea route, and they depended on the sea, they depended on fish, they had hydroelectricity, but not a naturally rich place, and at the beginning of the 20th century, a very poor place. But they had far-sighted government and very patriotic, independent, determined to do the best for themselves government. And the government was just wise enough in advance, when they realised the extent of the North Sea. They realised that it could copper fasten a prosperous future. They realised other countries their size and much bigger had managed the resource badly, and they just introduced what I think is still a brilliant policy. An industry goes on, gets bigger, diversifies, learns new things, but a resource, or a field of ore, or a field of gas, or a field of oil, is gone. So there's an essential need for prudence and patience in them, that there isn't. You make industrial mistakes, service industry mistakes, it dies, it goes away. Not very serious. Make big mistakes about natural resources, and that's it. There is no rehearsal and there is no second choice. It's gone. And that made it, to me, special. So it made the departure from what I was trying to do saddening. But one person, what difference? I saw the thing that had happened all over the world, that Irish governments were so anxious to get a little bit of revenue that they wrote conditions that were much too soft. And I don't know the extent of their agreements now. I'm terrified that they have detailed unbreakable agreements, which will be very advantageous to us, which were made at a time when oil was much cheaper and in much greater supply. They were made at a bad time. And I would like to add this thought, which is a thought about the future. If we waste this resource, it will be a crime against Irish people. we're in danger of doing it. I would like to see the abrogation or long fingering of existing agreements and to open up the situation to the world. For example, China, growing extremely rapidly, is seeking supplies for its emerging industry all over the world. They should be part of an auction. We should have an auction again now that oil is $100 a barrel and the technology of deep water drilling are developed. We should go again fresh in the light of current circumstances and not the circumstances of a decade ago when nobody ever believed that oil would start to run out.